Well, welcome back to our College Roadshow this weekend from the University of Nebraska here in Lincoln, and excited for our panel. Today we have a mix of ag economists here from the university as well as from the industry. Doug Simon's joining us from TradeOS. Doug, when you look at the USDA report that came out this week, a little bit of fireworks in the market. I mean, we expected USDA to lower that corn yield. Also saw USDA lower the soybean yield. Why did that catch the market off guard?
Well, I don't think people thought USDA maybe would drop it that much this fast. They have a tendency to be pretty, just conservative in those adjustments. But I think when they went out, they basically looked at ear counts and pod counts now. They'll do weights on those next month. But I think that was pretty objective yields, looking at those counts and came up with some numbers. I think they're pretty plausible from what we're seeing, especially some of the early dryland yields that we're seeing in eastern Nebraska. I think USDA is right in moving the direction they did.
Well, and Doug, knowing that we did see them cut both of those yields from August to September, then what does that typically mean that we'll see from September to this October report?
There's a tendency for them to drop again in October. So whether they drop 6.5 bushels on the corn and 1 on the beans, I don't think they'll drop that much again, but they could drop another 2 on the corn and maybe another half on the beans, which would be pretty substantial, cuts, especially as tight as the carryouts are now.
Yeah, well, there were a lot of questions from farmers this week about why the markets took off like they did. But, Cory, there's also a lot of questions from farmers right now who are trying to book those fall fertilizer needs. And hydrous, prices were ugly last year, but they're even shocked this year what prices they're being quoted. So what is at play right now where we're seeing these, and even hydrous and nitrogen prices increase so much?
Yeah, you got a lot of factors in play there. You got corn price heading back up. You got issues over in Europe. You have tariffs. You have transportation costs. It's everything across the board is leading to this price level and this level of volatility. And I'd expect it going forward as we move into the fall and winter.
But as you look at the geopolitical situation and just everything that we're seeing on the world stage, could we see inputs continue to climb?
Energy drives the cost of fertilizer, but so does output. So does the price of corn. So does the supply shocks overseas in terms of foreign suppliers. So does the current energy shock, as Cory noted, in Europe, which leaves all kinds of questions about the winter natural gas supply and availability. So does transportation and everything else that we see going on here and the challenges. So volatility is something producers just have to manage. It's not easy. It's not pretty, but it's just a reality of what we're working through.
Well, one of those issues that was diverted or averted last minute, Doug, is the rail prices. Did that have any impact, though, on basis that farmers here in Nebraska were seeing this week?
I think it could have had a bad impact on it if the strike took place. Everybody was kind of thinking, well, we'll get this thing resolved. But there's a lot of corn and soybeans that are going to get moved via rail, especially corn this year, because it's got to go back to western feed markets and back into the mid-south area. So it could have impacted that pretty dramatically, but fortunately they've averted that, and we'll be moving a lot of corn directly into ethanol plants in Nebraska and into those rail locations as well.
Well, and some of these areas that have seen that dryness really take a toll on yields and production, Cory, like here in Nebraska. How do you mitigate risk when you're looking at Mother Nature that did take such a toll on production?
This spring, while it was a little dry, you didn't know we'd get here. We didn't know what path it would take here. It's pretty rough right now, but crop insurance is your main guy in that one. The farmers here went through quite a bit with the hail, wind, and now tap a drought onto that, and it's looking pretty rough. But insurance is your main animal, and prepare to make adjustments for that going forward into next year.
Brad, real quick, what is your take on farm income levels for this year then?
In spite of the outlook in terms of production concerns and input concerns going forward, farm income still looks really strong for 2022. That's a function of irrigated yields still get a better price. Dryland yields have some insurance to help out in the end, but still strong financially, still concerns going forward.
We need to take a quick break, but we will have much more on U.S. Farm Report when we come back.
Closed captioning on U.S. Farm Report is brought to you by BASF. BASF, helping you to do the biggest job on Earth.